Hello, welcome back to Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley's spot on YouTube. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley. This is another video exploring Shropshire churches. This is the monastic church. I'll stand back slightly so you can see the full length of the building. The monastic church of St John the Baptist, Church Preen. In the 12th century, the Shropshire Hills were home to a number of monastic communities. The oldest and probably the best known today was at Much Wenlock, where the monastic community had their own church as well as rebuilding the parish church. In fact, they were in the process of rebuilding it when the Reformation happened and the monastery was closed. But here at Church Preen, the monastic church, a very simple building serving a very small monastic community, was also the parish church, and so it has survived to this day. It was majorly restored in the 19th century, as many were, and today it is something of a memorial not only to the monks but to the piety of a Victorian lord of the manor who rebuilt it when at the same time he rebuilt his house, which happened to be the former monastery. So let's explore this little building together. The first thing that strikes a visitor to St John's Church Preen is that this is a very long and very narrow building. Although, of course, weddings are held here, the aisle is extremely narrow, and therefore the bride cannot walk up it or down it next to anybody else if she wants to wear a big wide dress. You can see here the font. This comes from the 19th century restoration, which is by Arthur Sparrow, who was lord of the manor, who owned the manor house, and who restored it. The windows are still very much the medieval lancets, broad splayed, 12th century, as I say. The pews, of course, are 19th century. Preen Manor is next door. Obviously it's a private house, we can't have a look at it, but we can see this picture in a window, a memorial to Philip Trevor Jones, who lived at Preen Manor between 1979 and 2001. And you can see the building has restored certain elements that are medieval. It is the core of the manor house is part of the old monastery. And here you see the interior of the church. The pulpit and reading desk are Jacobean. There's a number of interesting Jacobean pulpits in this part of Shropshire, as we've seen. This is a bracket for an oil lamp before the current electric lights, of course. How do you do lighting? Well, you do lighting in terms of oil lamps. You can see here there's a couple that are still in their brackets, and they would be taken down to be filled and to be lit, and then they'd be put up to light the service. This door here is the door through which, back in the day when the church and manor house were very closely connected, this is where the folk from the manor house would come through. I suspect that this door here was where the monks entered. Now here we are closer to these Jacobean pulpit. A little bit battered. It's obviously been altered. The base is not original. It would probably have been higher originally, with the reading desk on the same side and not opposite it, which would have made for a bit of a narrow space there. Here we have the low side window. Now, low side windows are a bit of a mystery. We're not entirely sure what they were for, but the thought is that they either allowed people outside the church to see inside during the Mass, these are medieval, or since they were fitted with shutters, they may have been so that you could have someone ring a bell out of it, and then that would be heard in the village, heard by the folk, and they would know the Mass is taking place, and they would say a pious prayer. Now is occupied by a memorial to Arthur William Hanbury, son of Arthur Sparrow, who, as I say, is the man responsible for the rebuilding here, the restoration. And Arthur William Hanbury Sparrow was born April the 8th, 1856 and died October 30th, 1878. Arthur Sparrow himself is commemorated by a memorial here, which tells us that he says, in loving remembrance of Arthur Sparrow, FSA, Lord of the Manor of the Manors of Church Preen and Eton under Heywood, a magistrate for the counties of Stafford and Salop, and a deputy lieutenant of the latter, of which he was High Sheriff in the year 1887. For 25 years he resided at Preen Manor, which he rebuilt 1870-72, and where he died January the 21st, 1898, aged 71. This memorial is erected by his daughter Edith Sparrow. And then opposite we have the memorial to Edith, which is a mosaic of Christ and the woman of Samaria, to the glory of God, and in loving memory of Edith, eldest daughter of Arthur Sparrow, born March 17, 1853, died October 21st, 1911. We have a good eagle lectern, and let's say behind it you've got the monk's door, most likely. Note the candle wax. Also here, a rather interesting type of standard lamp. The church Bible is, of course, the authorized version, back end of the pulpit, and enormously long and narrow. Here is Ruth Sparrow, and her memorial is the Ascension. I go to prepare a place for you. Ruth, wife of Arthur Sparrow, born 16th July 1828, died 26th of June 1888, aged 59. The chancel furniture is very simple. You've got a simple rail. Notice that now, looking at it, this sort of wrought iron work, you could basically, it's off the shelf stuff. I've seen it in many other churches, but that's all right. It's decent off the shelf stuff. Single sedilia, which is now used for the fire extinguisher. These chairs, again, these are off the shelf you could get from ecclesiastical furnishing places, because this is a simple village church. The communion table looks a bit later. You've got a nice big 17th century chest, nice piscina, east window, triple lancet scenes from the life of Christ. The Nativity down here, well, Adoration of the Magi down here. Then you've got presentation of the temple, Christ at the age of 12 in the temple among the teachers, and baptism by John the Baptist, temptation in the wilderness, the agony in the garden, the crucifixion, the resurrection, and the ascension. The ascension, of course, quite rightly at the top, and making full use of the triple lancet. So we turn around again and proceed back down the church to the west. You see the west window high up on the wall. It's got to be there because of what's lower down on the outside. And below is a semi-corona, and the window is Christ the Good Shepherd and Christ the Light of the World, with the Light of the World again being a bit of a riff off of Holman Hunt's famous painting, St. John the Baptist, Church Preen, and there the door, see 19th century door. Most of the woodwork is 19th century, most of the furnishing is 19th century. Well, we'll go outside and have a look at what is visible, to the public anyway, of the outside of this building. So here we are in the porch at Church Preen. You have here the what looks like an external vestry. Certainly isn't an internal one, so that would make some sense. And we come out into a little graveyard. Yes, it is a little external vestry, there it is. And porch and vestry are in one. We come out into a little graveyard. There's the lich gate. The lich gate is modern. The lich gate actually is a millennium memorial. The yew tree, on the other hand, is huge and ancient, and is currently held together with a great iron band. We're surrounded here really by Preen Manor's estate. You see the gardens down here, and as we turn around, the sun is not in quite the right place for this, but one visits when one can, really. But here we are, here's the church, and again you can see a very, very long building with these lancets, very simple. This is so different from the monastic church at Much Wenlock, and it's a reminder that monasteries in the Middle Ages came in all shapes and sizes, and monastic churches too, in all shapes and sizes. You had the great monasteries like Fountains, with their hundreds of lay brothers and their huge estates, and then you had Church Preen, and this is the other end in terms of monasteries. These are the monasteries that there we are, looking down on the church. These are the monasteries that have a marginal existence for most of their lives. The monasteries that, by the end of the period of the monasteries in England, really they are on their last legs anyway. They're so small that they depend upon a lot of people with a sort of monastic vocation. And so here we are, say Church Preen, and it's a magnificent building, St John the Baptist. It's tiny, monastic. All you can see is basically these two ends, because obviously that's the stable yard of the manor house there. This is the yew, believed to have been planted around 457 AD, and thought to be the oldest tree in Europe. How about that? The oldest tree in Europe is here in Church Preen, and it tells us that this was, in the 5th century, an important site. Now, I don't know how they dated it, I'm sure somebody did, but it seems an important site even then. And the church is built here in the 12th century by the monks. Probably there was an existing church on the site, and restored in the 19th. As you can see, in fact, you can see the reason why that window is there is because of the lie of the land. So Church Preen, magnificent little monastic church, and today a little country church nestled here in the Shropshire Hills. It took me quite some time to find it for the first time. In fact, the first time I tried to find it, I couldn't find it, but I'm very glad to have found it. And it's a beautiful church just to visit and enjoy. So again, I hope you find these videos interesting. It is very largely me wandering around churches rambling, but there we are. So yes, I hope you enjoy these videos, and may God bless you and keep you in his love.